Police question two men who may be tied to the Oklahoma City bombing. The story on News 10.
And feel the need for speed as you race 130 miles an hour.
Coming up on weather, things are really looking up for a couple of days.
News 10 is next.
This is News 10 at 11.
We knew Tim McVeigh. We first met him 7 years ago when our son came home from the service with him for Thanksgiving. He was always polite and courteous to me. He came boating with us. He was there at my granddaughter's first birthday party. He was best man at my son's wedding. This is the Tim McVeigh that we know.
Portrait of an accused killer. As friends of Tim McVeigh say they cannot believe he had anything to do with the Oklahoma City bombing. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Brennan.
And I'm Angela Hampton. Several major developments today in the investigation with the FBI questioning two possible witnesses. And in Washington, President Clinton is making an emergency request. He wants $142 million to fund the investigation, to keep federal agencies operating in Oklahoma City, and to pay for a number of anti-terrorism measures. Because of budget restraints, the president says the money would come entirely through cuts in other programs. For the latest, let's go live to Charles Thomas in Oklahoma City.
It's been just over 16 hours since Gary Land and Robert Jacks were taken into custody as material witnesses in this case. We can assume that during that period, they've undergone intensive questioning concerning their whereabouts over the past 2 weeks. At dawn, the FBI surrounded the Kell Lake Motel in Carthage, Missouri. A wanted 1981 white Thunderbird registered to Gary Land was parked outside. An off-duty state trooper who lives nearby recognized the Arizona plate.
I notified our office of its location and began surveilling it until we could get the FBI located and notified.
They were asleep and apparently offered no resistance.
Land and his longtime friend Robert Jack surrendered without incident. The FBI wants to question the 36-year-old Land and 61-year-old Jacks because their recent travels seem to parallel those of bomb suspect Timothy McVeigh. They lived in Kingman, Arizona, near a motel where McVeigh lived until a week before the bombing. Law enforcement sources tell ABC News that when McVeigh was arrested in Oklahoma 90 minutes after the blast, a white Thunderbird with Arizona plates pulled over just up the road and waited, then followed the police car into Perry. Later that day, Gary Land and Robert Jacks, using their real names, checked into the Dan B. Motel in Perry. They left a few hours later and checked into a second motel 140 miles away in Veneta, Oklahoma. There was some speculation that dark-haired, muscular Land might be the mysterious John Doe number 2. There is some resemblance, but Land does not have a tattoo described by witnesses.
Could you tell us how the search for John Doe number 2 is proceeding?
Again, as I have said before, we are following every lead, and there are many. The people of this country are cooperating in an extraordinary fashion.
Land and Jacks have lived together for several years, moving around the country. A neighbor called them quiet, apparently jobless, and secretive.
They kept plastic and everything over the windows, and they kept everything covered up so you couldn't see in the house.
Authorities have given no indication how long they plan to hold Land and Jacks as material witnesses. Normally, the government observes a 48-hour limit. Reporting live from Oklahoma City, I'm Charles Thomas. Now back to you.
An Albany man is jailed tonight, charged with interfering with the police search for the suspect in last night's shooting at Albany's TC Club. 26-year-old Ricky Durham of 152nd Street and another man were picked up today near routes 147 and 67 in the town of Charlton. After questioning, the other man was released. Durham held for apparently driving the shooting suspect away from the scene last night. That suspect, a woman known on the street as Mecca, real name Julie Long, allegedly fired a 9mm handgun and hit 3 people. None of the victims' injuries are life-threatening.
Here's something to think about. Governor Pataki and legislative leaders say they are close to deciding how far apart they are on the state budget. After a leaders' meeting this afternoon, Pataki said staff members are crunching numbers to define exactly how much money separates Democrats from Republicans on the spending plan. The margin is 4-1 tonight among TV 10 viewers against the state subsidizing its downhill skiing centers.
Again, nearly 300 phone calls after our special report on state spending, which we are calling Worth the Tax. or give it the axe. John McLoughlin joins us now with tonight's results.
Jim, once again, a tremendous response on the phones tonight. 274 phone calls and email messages tonight in our admittedly non-scientific survey. Now, most viewers saying that we should give the axe to state-subsidized ski areas costing taxpayers at least $2 million a year.
Then let's give it the axe.
Sally Eastman was clearly in the majority. 81% of callers said let's give the axe to state-subsidized skiing. 19% of viewers saying that it's worth the tax.
I mean, I happen to like heavy metal rock, so if I want to be subsidized by the state, do I have the right to reach into your pocket? You can't do that to people. It's wrong to do that to people.
But other viewers told us they have no problem with the state spending and even losing money at its 3 ski mountains, Gore, Whiteface, and Bel Air.
It makes absolute sense for the state government to provide recreational opportunities for downhill skiers, just as it does for cross-country skiers, hikers, bikers, campers, boaters, snowmobilers.
Hi there!
In our report at 6 o'clock, we told you that it's difficult to even say how much the state-owned areas lose each year, because the state, unlike private businesses, does not figure capital costs into its bottom line. A few years ago, the state controller recommended that the areas be leased out, saying that Bel Air loses about $1 million annually. Gore, more than $1 million. Whiteface, no figures available. Here's a sampling of the pros and cons tonight.
But I don't think we should subsidize them. No way. Lease them. Either that or get rid of them.
The small amount of money we could make back by selling the ski areas would be very minimal, and we should keep the ski areas state-owned.
I just don't think the state should be running ski areas, especially losing money. I think it should be an entrepreneur or a business corporation running it. I don't think our tax money should...
And tomorrow night, as we continue our special reports, charges that millions of your tax dollars are being wasted for a blizzard of unnecessary paperwork at the state capitol, like the bill to put headlamps on manure spreaders.
That's an interesting one. How many folks out there do you think just want to axe all state spending, no matter what you bring up?
That's an interesting question, because I think there is that kind of...